On this week's show, which E3 press conference is the one you can't afford to miss? We double back on the Happy Time murders, and is Star Wars fandom at an all-time low? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back for another episode of the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you tuning into our shows each and every week. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos. Well, it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He is the legacy of Humanica Media. You got to check out all of his great stuff on humanicamedia.com, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, the Humanica Media YouTube site, and all of their great podcasts now on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and so many other outlets. It's my good friend. It's Josh Peterson. Hope you're having a better time fighting the computers than I am, my friend.
I actually prefer the term Supreme Commander Deluxe of Humanica Media. So if you could please just get my title right. We just have a...
Last time it was Legacy, man. It was Legacy. You gotta make up your mind.
Well, you know, like the armada of ships I command, my will changes with the wind. So just get my title right and we won't have any problems, all right? I quit.
you got friend, no worries. But it's going to be a great episode we've got for you here today. We've got Rob McCallum coming up in the Crossfire. He's going to talk about what's going on with the Happy Time murders and the future for that project, if anything. Also, as well, we're going to be talking about Star Wars fandom. There's been a lot of stuff going on within the Star Wars fandom realm that have not been the best thing in the world. And we're going to talk about, is it still okay to be a Star Wars fan? We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Plus, also as well, we're going to be talking about E3 press conferences. Which ones are the ones you need to see this coming weekend? And then, of course, we've got a lot more to talk about with Greg Hall from We Podcast and We Know Things. That great show. He is actually coming on our podcast here today a little in a little bit to talk about all the great stuff going on at E3, what he's looking forward to, and so much more. But first, Josh, I want to talk to you real quick about your thoughts on the upcoming weekend at the movies. It's kind of a different type of weekend where there's three actually solid movies that are coming out in Ocean's 8, Hereditary, and Hotel Artemis. Now, I want to ask your thoughts on those pictures. Are you familiar with them? What are your thoughts on them? Ocean's 8, I'm kind of excited for because of the fact that it obviously emanates somewhat in the Ocean's universe, because I loved Ocean's 11, 12, and 13. So I definitely, at some point in time, I'm going to make an effort to go see Ocean's 8. I know Hotel Artemis, a lot has been made in the news recently, not only because Jodie Foster is involved with the picture, but Dave Bautista, coming off his success in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is trying to get himself in a little bit more prominent roles, larger stature. And some of the things he's talking about during the press tour for this movie is, well, his thoughts on if he's going to return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if he's actually still dust in the wind after all, or if he's going to stay that way, or if he's, also he talked about stuff going on within possibly if a Gears of War movie coming out, him wanting the role of Marcus Phoenix. Come on. You know I had to say that.
Damn.
But Josh, exactly. Josh, I want to hear your thoughts on the three movies that's coming this weekend. Actually, one of the best rated movies of the year is also coming this weekend, and it's not the one you think.
First of all, let's all I want the internet to just take a moment and focus on the fact that Gerald said that he enjoyed Ocean's 13. So let's all just take a moment. If you want to email at us at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com and tell us how you feel about that comment, we would love to reply. Please
Something tells me you're not a big fan of that picture.
no. So if you want to shame Gerald, I'm all ears. I would love to communicate with you on that front. But yeah.
Just
So
like you would, well, to make sure if you're commenting on me liking and thinking that Ocean's 13 is actually a pretty good movie, then also comment on the fact that he thought last year's King Arthur was a good movie as well, and Assassin's Creed for that matter.
I
So
mean,
let's go down that road, man. Let's go down that road.
they all agree with me. So you notice how the email box is empty on that one. So thanks, guys, to the chat. Thank you very much.
All right, fine, man. But it is going to be a great weekend for moviegoers because it looks like there's a little bit more of a choice. They're not must-see movies, but they're actually movies that look like, for all intents and purposes, that are pretty good watches, out there for anyone that wants to go and hit the movies this weekend.
Right. So all right, Hotel Artemis, really good, really interesting concept. That's a Shane Black movie. Wait, who's making that? That's
Because
right.
Shane Black's, I think, involved with the Predators.
Okay, wait. That's his movie though, right? Let me just double check. Hotel Artemis is a Drew Pierce. Okay, so Drew Pierce, right? He was in he made he was responsible for Iron Man 3, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Okay, yeah. So this movie actually looks really interesting to me because I've always that's a really interesting concept, the idea of having a hospital for criminals. Like that's really cool, but it's also what happens when you get all these criminals who to them it's a power struggle. So it's what happens when you get all these criminals who are enemies with each other in the same room. Do they call a truce or do they keep trying to fight each other? And the fact that it has Jeff Goldblum in it, you can't go wrong. Honestly, you cannot go wrong with a movie with Jeff Goldblum in it. You just can't. Like I went over to a buddy's house last weekend to play poker. He had a shower curtain with Jeff Goldblum on it. He's just a everybody loves him. You can't go wrong with him. Um, Ocean's 8, on the other hand, I'm not excited about it whatsoever. And it's not because it's a female-powered movie that has nothing to do with it, though if I go on Facebook and say that, much like I did Wonder Woman, I will be crucified and burned alive. But I just, I loved Ocean's 11, loved Ocean's 12. Ocean's 13 is kind of boring, left a stale taste in my mouth. So Ocean's 8 is something I will probably watch when it comes out on Blu-ray or digital. But despite it doing really well, I want to know like not what the critics think, but what normal people think because that's the thing too. It's an all-female cast, and this has nothing to do with my opinion, but I feel like that's going to sway the critics into saying this is a very good movie. They're not going to be able to look at it objectively. So I'm curious to what the average moviegoer is going to say about it, and I think that's going to decide whether or not I watch this flick. And, sorry, what was the third one?
Third one is actually one of the highest rated movies of the year. It is Hereditary, a horror movie, and which could, of all the movies that have come out for A24, it could be their biggest opening ever for that small, ever growing movie studio.
Well, okay, so when is the last time we had a legitimately good horror movie? And don't say Quiet Place or It because those are big budget horror movies. Those aren't exactly like your average genuinely scary movie. When's the last one that you can remember?
Well, there was the one. Well, there was actually a few in a row. Remember? I mean, it started to me with Get Out. I think Get Out is a horror movie. I think that. But then again, I would probably classify that with It and A Quiet Place as maybe a crossover horror type movie. Would you do that?
Yeah, I mean like a big budget supernatural film.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying we've seen our share of small, low budget horror movies still come out each and every year. In fact, we've talked about this on the show many times where all these small, low budget films, that are horror related always seem to have those great openings, maybe another week behind it, and then they fizzle out. This one actually might have some legs because it is so well thought of by critics.
Right. So I teach high school, and the students in my classes are talking about this movie. So I mean, if this is a small, it was originally a small movie, but it has such a big word of mouth with people, not just with like teenage kids, but with my friends and like my mom's friends and all these people who I've spent time in the company of. They're all talking about this movie. So that's what makes me believe that this is going to be one of those movies that people aren't going to really care or wait to see what the critics say. They're going to go straight out to see this movie because, like I've said before, being scared is such a novel feeling, especially when you're watching, when you're watching a movie. So like this could be a really big movie. This could be huge for that for A24, but it's also has such an interesting story, and I think that because the trailers are so vague, that's what's really appealing about it, is because it has your supernatural stuff, it has your jump scares, but there's not a lot known about it, and I think that's the biggest, factor leading people in to see the movie this weekend is going to be the fact that they don't know much about it, what's going on, what is causing the hauntings and all this good stuff, so I wanna see it, but where do you stand on it?
Well, if the word of mouth is as good as potentially it should be with a movie that has garnered such critical acclaim, in fact, it is right up there with some of the best movies of the year so far. I might actually have to go venture out and see this film. If not, I'm going to make an effort to go see it probably when it hits video real quickly. It's just the fact that this could be the biggest movie of A24's movie career so far. That movie studio has been that small little engine that could keeps on growing more. I believe Ex Machina that came out. That's an A24 pick. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That came out A24 as well.
That might be the one that is actually of the ones that were garner the most money, but it's the film company's actual biggest opening is It Comes at Night. So It Comes at Night is the biggest opening so far. And if Hereditary just even does $10 million, it's going to be the biggest opening ever for that. And yes, mind you, it's very small potatoes compared to what a lot of these other big budget movies are had do, like even Solo, which didn't do so well. Then you've got Deadpool, Avengers Infinity War. I mean, they came out and you see how well they're doing. But when it comes to a small growing studio like A24, you got to give it props for going at it and keep continuing to just slowly climb up the ladder with small movie after small movie after small movie. And sooner or later, maybe 5-10 years down the line, they're going to get even larger projects. They're going to create larger budget projects that will resonate even more with fans. And we'll all be remembering the days when movies like Hereditary came out that really turned the tide for them in their favor.
Yeah, and if you think about it too, there's not a lot of movies like we used to have. What was it back when The Grudge came out? We had studios like Ghost House that would make, they made The Grudge and I think a couple others, smaller budget horror films. But we don't have a
Bloomhouse is also another one that's always talked about.
think that's what I was looking for. But we don't have a lot of studios like that have shut down, so we don't have a lot of people. A24 also put out was that movie The Witch. Remember that came out uh last year or the year before, and that was like one of the most critically acclaimed horror movies ever made. So we don't have a lot of studios putting out films like that anymore, and that's the people like to be scared. Like when I worked at a movie theater, anytime a new horror movie came out, people were lining up to see it, and it might not show in mass box office numbers, but to the individual moviegoer and their friends, it's a good time for them. So I think, I don't know why people don't make as many horror movies as they used to, but A24 definitely has the they have hold on a market that hasn't been utilized in a very long time.
Definitely, that's going to be something to look at this weekend with A24's entry of Hereditary. Like I said, on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, it has garnered very high critical ratings. So obviously, there's a lot of momentum riding on for that movie. I know you were talking about the critical reception for Ocean's 8. It's been kind of mixed so far. It's gotten okay ratings, and it's pretty much across the board. Obviously not standing up at this point in time to what people's estimations are of Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12. I'm not going to say Ocean's 13 because obviously we differ on that account. So I will say this. I'm still excited to go see Ocean's 8. I like the fact that they're tying it into the Ocean series, but not forcing it on people. There's actually going to be, from what I see in the cast roster, there is going to be one member of the Ocean series at least making an appearance in this movie. So that'll be interesting to see how that individual is and just how they go across as not only how they commit the crimes, but also do they do it with enough style, panache, and smarts like Oceans 11, 12, and sorry to say this, Josh, 13, I thought were basically just done with a whole lot of style. It harkened back to the Rat Pack days on all three accounts and just really seemed to be something that for some really hang on to. I mean, it's a billion-dollar franchise with all three movies. I think garnering combined worldwide about $1 billion. So this is something that a lot of people have been looking forward to with the all-female version of the Ocean series. And let's hope that the movie does well enough to not only gain a popular opinion, but also as well a lot of interest as well for future segments and maybe return to the Ocean series that we all know as well and have them working with each other. Just the possibilities there are endless if the movie does well this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, my question to you is, how much of a desire was there to return back to the world of Oceans?
From the studio standpoint, I'm sure there was a lot.
Right, but I mean, they wrapped it up pretty well in Ocean's 13, despite me not liking that movie. I watched it and I was like, okay, I feel like I didn't hate it, but this is enough for me. So at no point did even when I heard about the casting news and all, and I heard about the announcement for the film, I saw the trailer. I just I have absolutely no interest in watching this movie. So I mean, I don't know. It's just not something and that's had again nothing to do with the fact that it's an all female cast, and that's probably going to come back to haunt me in some way. But it has nothing to do with the fact that it's all women. It's just I don't have any interest in returning to that world. It's just like, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch. I have no interest in returning to those worlds because those movies were just perfect the way that they were.
I know you had that same sentiment when it comes to the Pirates of the Caribbean series after you gave the last one a try.
Right. Yeah. I had no interest in returning to the Pirates of the Caribbean. I actually watched the last one on Netflix a couple weeks ago, and I don't even know why it exists. But yeah, like after the first three Pirates movies, they didn't need to make any more. So it's just there are franchises that are clearly they want to revitalize something that people don't want revitalized. So I'm curious what the box office numbers and what the reception of this film is going to be.
Well, we'll certainly find out this weekend, and hopefully we can talk more about it on our Monday episode and see if Ocean's 8, Hereditary, and Hotel Artemis, all three perform and exceed their expectations this weekend. What are your thoughts out there on this weekend at the movies? Are you excited about the three new entries that are coming out this weekend? Are you actually considering going back and seeing one of the other movies like Solo, like Avengers Infinity War, like Deadpool 2 instead of these three? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, like I said, we've got a great show here for you today. Coming up next, we've got Rob McCallum in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. Also, as well, we've got Greg Hall from We Podcast and We Know Things. You got to check out that show today on Apple Podcasts and also iHeart and Castbox and all those great outlets as well. He's going to be stopping by with his E3 thoughts. Along with that, Josh and I are also going to be talking a little E3 and, of course, is it still okay to be a Star Wars fan? We're going to come up with that and a whole lot more. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with the program. This is Gerald once again coming right back at you right here on the PCC Multiverse. Just want to let you know, if you need our schedule for all of our programs and what's the latest and greatest going on with Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanic Media, Game Source, and so much more, you got to check it out today on Pop Culture Cosmos, our Facebook, or Pop Culture Cosmo on Twitter. You'll see a rundown always of what our stations are, where we're at, because we're played on online radio 7 days a week. Also, as well, you'll see Josh's stuff from Humanic Media, his latest and greatest stuff going there. You'll also see the latest information and news and updates from the world of pop culture, whether it be movies, television, video games, comic books, sci-fi, you name it. We always throw bits and pieces up there from the universe out there that reports on it that I'm sure you'll like. So check us out today, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, and of course, Pop Culture Cosmo on Twitter. And don't forget, if you're listening to this, there is still time to go to Wheelie Q Barbecue Sauce. That's WheelieQ.com. If you're interested, they've got a great Father's Day special. 2, and I mean 2 great bottles of their awesome barbecue sauce. 1 very tasty rub you can just go ahead and put all over your ribs next time you're grilling. And of course, also as well, they've got a great seasoning that you can add on to all your meats and vegetables and all that good stuff. All 4 of these things put together for just $22 plus free shipping. And I'll give you a heads up as well, just between you and I, if you put in the code POD2 at checkout, you're going to go ahead and get yourself a extra 15% discount. That's right, POD2, that's POD2, or you could go POD1, POD1 for the Pop Culture Cosmos show. There's also POD3, POD4, and POD5. POD3, POD4, and POD5 to cover our other great shows, the Super BS Gamescast, Inside Sports, and Topicocalypse. I will say this, it's a kind of a nervous time right now going on in Star Wars universe, because being a fan of the series is kind of hard, because there's so much toxicity that's come out, not just because of Solo and what we've seen from The Last Jedi. I mean, this has obviously been emanating beforehand, because they've been really rough on some of the stars of Star Wars, including Daisy Ridley, but now Kelly Marie Tran from The Last Jedi. Both of those individuals, one recently, one not so recently, have shut off their social media accounts, primarily Instagram, because of the backlash of whatever's going on in the Star Wars universe, because people are really being bullying and trolling them and really saying unkind things that are unnecessary and pretty much unneeded. So I will say this, that it's not a great sign for the Star Wars universe and to be a Star Wars fan when you have so many ill-willed people speaking out on social media and saying just blatantly stupid things that causes these individuals who are supposed to entertain us, and for the masses, they do. Unfortunately, they're trying to make their lives miserable and forcing them off the social media outlets that they're on, which is very sad, compounded by the disappointment that is Solo, a Star Wars story. Financially, these things make it really hard to be right now a true Star Wars fan. So I ask you, Josh, you know the latest on what's going on with Kelly Marie Tran and her Instagram account. You also know what's going on with Solo, a Star Wars story. Is it a very difficult time to be a Star Wars fan?
Okay, see, I am actually kind of torn about this because from what I understand, Kelly Tran, her name is, she's done this before on other in the b- wake of the reception of other films that she's been in. So I don't know how much of this is like it's genuine or it's a ploy for attention or maybe it's a marketing scheme. Like I'm hoping that it's genuine. But in either case, I know Star Wars fans are like they're bad, man. And like I don't know how much of this is them feeling backed into a corner of over like just being burnt out on Star Wars and they're tired of just having it beat to death, or if it's a they're genuinely a bunch of jerks. Like it's hard to tell. It really is. Like, Star Wars Episode 8 was in my opinion, it was a just not a good movie. But I don't go out of my way to put the people who made it down. It's not their fault. It's not the actor's fault. It's the if anything, it's the fault of the studio and the people writing it. But it's an interesting time where, if you what was it? Maybe back when the original trilogy came out, people couldn't voice their opinion in the way that they can today. They have social media as this big platform where you can literally just tweet right to the director, producer, whatever. It's did you see the on Instagram they had happy birthday messages to Kathleen Kennedy, and a lot of them were very like, yeah, some of them were funny, but some were jokes in very poor taste. Like they
Yes,
were
I was.
saying
I
a lot
saw
of
some of
things.
that. Yeah,
One
very
of them
disappointing.
one of them did make me laugh. They said you're supposed to bring balance to the force, not destroy it, but it was Star Wars fans, like, honestly, like, that just goes to show you it's ironic because we're a bunch of nerds, and we come from this subculture of nerds where we're used to being made fun of, but we dish out such harsh criticism to anybody trying to please this subculture. I don't know, it's weird, man. Have you ever noticed that?
Well, it's very disappointing to me that this culture of people that still just slither on through the social media outlets out there. That's all they want to seem to do is just throw this filth, this vile, this hatred out there when they could be turning it into something more positive and it's something that reinforces good feelings. There's nothing wrong with sharing your opinion that I didn't like this movie, didn't like that movie. We share our opinion all the times on this show. I mean, we're not hesitant to do that. I mean, we shared our thoughts on the three movies coming out this weekend earlier in the program. So that's not the problem I have. It's when you go ahead and inflict really devastating harm to individuals and harass them and basically just keyboard warrior trying to go ahead and just send a whole bunch of mean things that you would never say to them in real life, that you would never do to them in real life, and that you just still have the gall to go ahead and do. And it's very sad that Star Wars fans, quote unquote, are doing this, because the Star Wars fans that I know and that I get along with, we cannot like things in the Star Wars universe. We can like things in the Star Wars universe. I mean, the Boba Fett movie, when it was announced that it was under writing and being directed by James Mangold, you know, we didn't really care that he was doing it, even though he's a very skilled writer and director. We just weren't interested in a Boba Fett movie, and we're Star Wars fans. Now, does that mean that you should go out and start harassing us on social media? No, you shouldn't. It's our opinion. If you have a different one, which I know there are a lot of people that actually are finding it cool that there's a Boba Fett movie perhaps on the way, that's fine. More power to you. We actually might end up seeing it at the theaters anyways, just because it's there. It just, you need to go ahead and take a chill pill if you really are that just hard up to go ahead and make people's lives miserable through social media. You just need to go ahead and look in the mirror and just see, is this what I really want to do with my life? And I don't know. It's there's so much more life. There's so much more out there in the world that's so good to experience and whatnot. is really harassing a Star Wars actor or actress really the thing you should be doing?
Yeah, I know, man. It's like that old saying, like, we create our gods and our gods create us. Like, we worship Star Wars, we worship the pop culture, and in turn, that creates the persona that we want to become. But at the same time, social media just amplifies everything. Just the existence of social media amplifies everything, and the fact that we can talk to whoever we want to, we can say whatever we want to. And if people are listening, people are clicking share, clicking like, whatever, it's getting it attention. So we are creating the trolls, and at the same time, we are feeding the trolls. And seeing a troll on a nobody loves more than, obviously in the case, Roseanne is a clear example of this, but like we feed the trolls, we create the trolls, and the trolls go on a rampage, and then the trolls just get more fuel from people talking about it. So it's a very complicated thing, man, and I wish that it wasn't, but it's sad, and like what happened to the days, people make movies. Sometimes the movies suck, sometimes they're good, and it's not you're the funny thing is it's not funny, but the sad thing is you're having all these people comment on things, like really going to their out of their way to bash on things that they wouldn't have the talent in a million years to create themselves. So it's very polarizing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And who knows, maybe the next Star Wars will be good. Maybe fans are getting burnt out on Star Wars, but you're always going to have those people who say the originals were so good and they're going to want to bash it. And as for the case of Kelly Tran shutting down her social media accounts, like I said, like I had read something where she had done this before, and who knows? Is it for attention? Is it genuine hurt? Nobody knows. Only she knows. But in either case, and on either side of the playing field, social media just makes things that much worse.
It does. You're exactly right. I mean, social media in so many ways can be a positive as a form of communication, but we're finding out in the past few years that in many ways, social media can also be a definite negative as well. And if I was Alden Ehrenreich, I would reconsider my social media status as soon as you can, man, because you're going to be blamed for the death of the Star Wars universe and all that. You're going to hear all this stuff again. That since Daisy and Kelly Marie Tran are not on there, guess who they're going to migrate to next because of the failure of Solo? I will say this: I'm still wearing my Star Wars stuff. I'm still wearing my T-shirts. I'm still proudly displaying my love for Star Wars, but it's just sometimes the way these idiots out there are acting, it just makes it a little bit harder to do so, at least for now. But by the time Star Wars Episode 9 comes out, a year and a half goes by, maybe there'll be some short memories and we could just go ahead and move on. But like I said, like you said, if Episode 9 is not up to snuff, the trolls are just going to come right back out. What are your thoughts on the Star Wars fandom out there? Are you tired of Star Wars? Are you tired of these individuals who seem to have the gall to go ahead and try and expound their thoughts on the Star Wars universe in such a negative and bullish fashion? Do you think that there should be a better line of communication? And also these Star Wars actors and actresses who have these social media accounts, should they be exempt from all this tarnish and this hate that so many people seem to have right now for the Star Wars universe? Share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. When we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit more about E3 because we have Greg Hall coming on the show. He's from We Podcast and We Know Things. And then before we head on out, Josh and I are going to have our thoughts on the E3 press conferences you don't want to miss. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald coming right back at you here with Josh Peterson. Just want to say thank you to Rob McCallum and Greg Hall for appearing on the show today. Monday, Josh, we're going to be talking more about all those great press conferences that we've seen so far. And hopefully, we'll be getting a chance to see quite a few of them before we go back on the air on Monday. Of the press conferences this weekend that you're looking forward to, and there's going to be quite a few, and even the ones just before E3, what is the one conference you're looking forward to most, or the one that you think will have the most importance this E3?
Personally, I feel like Square Enix is gonna have the most important press conference because they're the people who are really pulling for the single player game. And out of all the groups there, so you have Ubisoft, you have Sony, Microsoft, whatever. Okay, there's two. Okay, Square Enix I think has a very important thing because they're still pulling for the single player game, single player platform. Your Final Fantasies, your Hitman, actually not Hitman anymore, but your Final Fantasies, your role playing games, things like that. Project Octopath is huge for them on the Nintendo Switch. So I think that they have a lot in this race, and also, like we talked about last week, Microsoft is important because it's a do or die moment for them. They have their either, if they show us more Forza, more connectability, more backwards compatibility, more upscaling. Yeah, those things.
Careful when you say connect.
Oh, gee, yeah, don't, yeah. Hopefully, no Connect, but yeah, those things are important, but they're not going to sell Xboxes. Not the Xbox One X is out. Nobody really cares about that anymore. What we want is we want first party content. We want we want new AAA titles. We want heck, even some third party content. Like we just want original content. We want new IPs. We want, and this is important for them too because they need to lean. It might even help them to lean heavily on some old IP addresses like Fable, Halo. I don't know. There's some other
Gears of
things.
War.
Gears of War. There's some other things out there. I'm sure that they haven't touched in a while besides those three major players. But this is important for them. Like they need to prove time and time again this year. Phil Spencer has said we we know that we have a need for exclusive content and new IP addresses, and we are working on it. So this is their time. This is the opportunity for them to prove to us that they are actually doing these things. What do
I
you think?
Well, I agree with you, my friend. I think of all of them, I think Xbox needs to have the biggest one of all of them. It needs to hit the home run. It needs to hit the grand slam because they can have the best and brightest outlook for this year that they've had in a long time if they come off well. Because right now it's kind of tenuous with Nintendo and Sony. They're kind of both in kind of a state of flux with Nintendo's riding a lot of its hopes on the Super Smash Brothers, whether it's a remake or an all new version, we don't quite know yet. And what else are they going to bring out? So that's kind of, we don't know what's going on there. We think that they're going to bring out enough to be the major player this holiday, but we're not quite sure. PlayStation, we know what's coming down the pike as far as a good portion of their titles with The Last of Us 2, Days Gone, obviously a couple of the other titles, the Spider-Man title as well, and then the one that there's other titles that they've got down the pike that are also very good. So they're obviously going to bring out some other stuff that they're going to be in development for, but they're starting to wind down the PlayStation 4 as far as in importance because we all know PlayStation 5 is around the corner. They're even admitting to it. So that is going to be something that they're going to be debuting maybe 2019, maybe 2020. We're not quite sure. So they're gearing up for that. So their focus is not all the 100% on what's going on in the marketplace currently. So now is the time more than any for Xbox to really, really step up to the plate and hit a home run, hit a grand slam, and produce some quality games on the way very soon, not 2-3 years down the line. They need to make a difference and they need to make it right away.
What do you think the odds are that Sony announces some kind of new mobile gaming platform?
I don't think they're going to do it now. I have a feeling if they do decide to go ahead and do some type of mobile gaming platform, I don't think it would introduce it until maybe around the time next year, or maybe just as before or maybe in conjunction with a PlayStation 5 announcement.
Yeah, so that was the big thing was, this year they stopped support for the Vita indefinitely. And there are a lot of gamers who were really upset about that, but at the same time, you have people high up in Sony saying that there is no market for mobile gaming. But then, boom, what did Nintendo do? They came along with the Switch and proved that the complete opposite. And then, in a recent interview with the CEO of Sony, he said that they are looking into future options for mobile gaming. So I don't think you'd say something like that lightly. So I think that they're thinking about it. What it's going to be, I don't know, but this is not another E3 where they can just show us a whole butt ton of games that may or may not come out in the next 2 or 3 years. It's something that they're gonna have to show us something cool, whether it's like exclusive titles that people are looking forward to. Final Fantasy VII Remake would be a good one, Kingdom Hearts, whatever. But they're gonna have to show us something that is going to keep us interested until the next console cycle, which is allegedly supposed to begin in 2020.
Could be even sooner, depending on how this holiday shakes out. If the PlayStation 4 stays strong, I'm in agreement with you, a 2020 sign. But if it kind of tails off, they could be hitting the button on a PlayStation 5 sooner than you think. But I'm with you, my friend. Square Enix is something really to look out for. But the biggest one, I think, and I think we're both in agreement on that, the one that has the most to win and the most to lose is Microsoft and Xbox this weekend with their press conference. I believe it's actually on Monday, but definitely something that they need to go ahead and hit this E3 2018, because they do need to be the talk of E3 2018 and catapult that success into a strong rest of the year. What are your thoughts on the E3 press conferences? Do you want to go ahead and check them all out? Which ones are you excited for the most? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. So Josh, I think we're heading on out here. We actually made it through. I'm kind of surprised with the antique of a laptop I'm using right now, but I'm really happy that we made it through, my friend. And I know some of the press conferences that are coming out this weekend. Just tell you what, man, it's E3 2018 around the corner. I know you'll be there for a lot of interviews. You've already been booking them. So you're excited to be going to another E3?
Yeah, it's always exciting to see what my to me the big excitement is seeing what these uh non first party publishers are pushing, non Microsoft funded studios are pushing, the Ubisofts, the Bethesdas, what the people beneath them are trying to push out. There's a lot of interesting game. You had Deep Silver Studios put out Kingdom Come Deliverance, and we saw some footage from that last year. And it's fun to know what's coming down the pipeline. Even like with Indie Haven, we had Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. Great game. Still got to finish playing it. I haven't had a chance to yet, but there's a lot of great stuff, you know, from smaller developers that just doesn't get the credit it deserves. And so we talked to a guy on the Super BS Games cast where he was bragging about how the future is in VR, and he was talking about, raw data and all those games that we watched last year when we went to E3, and he's singing praises about those games, and that was a big thing last year at E3 was VR. I'm curious to see what kind of presence that is going to have at this year's E3. Do people still feel like it's a future, much like 3D movies, or is it kind of something that's going to be phasing out soon?
All I will say this, my friend, when it comes to VR, with the PSVR being the top seller, and that's only garnered what, 2 million sales tops, it tells me that the general consumer out there is still not interested at all in VR. and could be a fad that's going away at some point in time, like it did before in the past, only to be revived again at another point in time. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening, and here's hoping you have yourself a great day.